There is a wall standing in your life right now that has never held a single pound of weight. It looks exactly like the others, same paint, same texture, same height. If you knocked on it, it would sound just as solid as anything else in the house. But somewhere behind that wall, there's a gap, a space where the beam was supposed to go and never did. You go to church, you pray before meals, you post the verse, you sing the song, you raise your hands at the right part of the song. From the outside, the structure looks finished. Painted, trimmed, presentable, but nobody has ever actually tested what's holding it up. That's the part most people never think to ask, not whether the wall looks right, but whether it was ever built to carry anything at all. Here's what almost nobody tells you: a wall doesn't have to be load-bearing to look load-bearing. It can have the exact same drywall, the same molding, the same coat of white paint as the wall right beside it that's holding up the entire second floor. You could live in that house for 20 years and never know which wall was real, until the day something heavy decides to lean on it. And something heavy is always coming. A diagnosis, a betrayal you didn't see coming, a child who walks away from everything you taught them. A year where your prayers seem to hit the ceiling and fall straight back down into your lap. That's the moment the inspection actually happens, not during a church service, not during a quiet 5-minute devotion before work, but under load, under weight. Under pressure nobody chose and nobody scheduled. And here's the part that should unsettle you: a decorative wall doesn't fail a little. It doesn't crack quietly in a corner where no one will notice for a while. When the weight finally comes down on something that was never built to carry it, it doesn't bend. It gives way completely, and on its way down, it usually takes part of the ceiling with it. This is exactly what an ancient letter warned about, centuries before anyone built a house out of drywall and studs. The writer described people who had a form of godliness but denied its power. Not people who rejected God outright, not people standing outside the structure. People who kept every visible piece of it, the shape, the paint, the trim, the open door, while the thing underneath, the thing that actually carries weight, was never connected to anything real. So how do you know which wall you're actually standing in front of, not someone else's, yours? Start here. A decorative wall performs forgiveness, says the right words, plays the part in front of the family, but the moment the other person isn't watching, the resentment is still standing exactly where it was the day it was built. A load-bearing wall forgives in private, in the place where no one will ever know it happened, because it was never about being seen forgiving. It was about the weight actually being removed. A decorative wall gives, but only where it's seen, only where it might be mentioned. A load-bearing wall gives in the dark, where the only audit that exists is the one nobody else can read. A decorative wall prays loudly in front of others, and goes quiet the moment it's alone with God. A load-bearing wall does the opposite. It's louder in the dark than it has ever been in the room. A decorative wall repents publicly, dramatically, almost performatively, and returns to the exact same pattern within the week. A load-bearing wall repents quietly and never goes back, because something underneath actually shifted. Notice something about all four of these: none of them are about doing more. The decorative wall isn't lazy. It can be the most elaborately finished wall in the entire house. More verses memorized than anyone else in the room, more services attended than the pastor himself. More hands raised, more amens spoken, more volunteer hours logged. Decoration can be exhausting work. It can look, from every visible angle, like devotion. The question was never how much was built on top of the wall. The question is what it's actually connected to underneath the paint. This is where most people quietly stop looking, because what's underneath is uncomfortable to check. It means asking not, what do I do for God, but is there anything in me actually obeying Him when obedience costs something I don't want to lose? That second question is the one the paint can never answer for you. There's an old story about two builders. Both of them heard the exact same instructions. Both of them built houses that from the street looked nearly identical, similar materials, similar size, maybe even neighbors complimenting both on the same afternoon. The only difference nobody could see from outside was where the foundation actually went. One man dug down past the soft topsoil, past the comfortable shallow ground that would have saved him weeks of work, until he hit solid rock and anchored everything to it. The other man built fast. He built on what was easy to reach. Why dig deeper when the house stands either way? For a long time, it genuinely didn't matter. Both houses stood, both looked finished, both impressed the people walking by. Then the rain came, not a light rain, a flood, the kind that doesn't ask permission and doesn't check anyone's schedule. It hit both houses with the exact same force, from the exact same angle, on the exact same night. One house didn't move, not because it was built from stronger material than the other, not because its owner prayed harder while the storm was happening. It didn't move because, long before the storm ever existed, someone made the unglamorous decision to dig deeper and actually obey what the instructions said, not just hear them, agree with them, and build comfortably on top of the agreement. The other house collapsed, and the account doesn't say it cracked a little or that it could be patched up by morning. It says the destruction was complete. That's the test, not whether you heard the word, not whether you can recite it, defend it in an argument, or post it under a sunset photo. Whether obedience ever actually reached the rock, whether what you believe was ever connected to what you do in the rooms where no one is grading you on it. If you're honest with yourself right now, and this is the part that costs something to admit, there is probably a wall somewhere in your life that has never been tested. A part of your faith that looks completely finished but has never once been asked to carry real weight. Maybe it's never had to yet. Maybe the storm simply hasn't reached that particular room of your life, but it will. It's not punishment when it finally arrives. It's just gravity doing what gravity has always done, revealing which walls were ever connected to anything real and which ones were only ever connected to the paint can. Here's the only thing that actually changes the outcome. The connection has to happen before the weight does. Nobody anchors a wall to the foundation in the middle of the storm. There isn't time, and the wall is already under load by then. That work happens in the quiet, unremarkable days when nothing is testing you yet, the private forgiveness no one applauds. The giving that never gets mentioned, the obedience that costs you something today and earns you nothing visible today. That's not decoration, that's the beam finally going in. And once it's in, the storm stops being something to merely survive. It becomes the one thing that finally proves what was true the whole time, that underneath the paint, something was actually built to hold. There's one more detail in that old story most people skip past on their way to the ending. Both builders heard the exact same words from the exact same source, possibly on the exact same day. The difference was never in what they knew. It was in what they were willing to do with it, quietly, long before anyone was ever watching.